Hello, everyone. So, welcome to our insightful session on the CVSS 4.0 standard into the ISO SAE 21434 framework for assessing attack feasibility in automotive cybersecurity. So today's presenters will be Orhun Süzer, an independent consultant with over 8 years of experience in automotive cybersecurity, and Oliver Huppenbauer, global cybersecurity manager at Marquardt with more than a decade of expertise in managing cybersecurity for automotive systems. So we will shortly start. I would like to remind you some points before we start the presentation. So on the right hand side, so you will see the QA button. So you can anytime post your questions in this field. So we will at the end of the presentation, so we will go through them one by one and answer as time permits. In addition, so our guests, our speakers, will be kindly available after the session. I mean, after the QA session in the lounge. So please if you still have questions to ask or you want to chat with them one to one, so you join the launch and find them in the right table and go ahead and ask your questions. Um, so I think, well, we can start. So I'm now leaving the stage.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you for the welcome and thank you for um, being a speaker at the SOS and welcome everybody to our session. Yeah, me, Oliver, will make a short introduction in the topic because it's important that everyone is on the same page and on the same base. And then let's say Orhun will bring us and dive us into this transformation with examples, and I will at the end summarize things up. So let's get started. Before we go to the topic, just a brief introduction into the company, into Marquardt. For those of you who don't know us, so we are in Tier 1 with the HQ in Germany, and we are keen for products for home devices, but mainly known for products in automotive. HMI systems, also complex ones like steering wheels, battery management, and also entry-exit systems. Also the latest ones, which needs to be CCC compliant. And we are also worldwide present, so over 10,000 employees in 20 locations in 30 countries, 40 continents. So big, and as you can imagine, and you know, security is also all around the globe. So we as security engineers, architects at Marquardt, we have lots of things to do. Yeah, and one of the things is really this conversion topic, which maybe is also important for you. And now we are coming to the background information about better understanding the situation. So as you know, security is all about risk mitigation and evaluation. And when we have this evaluation, we have two things. One is the impact rating and one is a attack feasibility rating. And there are over time in automotive different use cases where we need it. So at the project beginning, we have the TARA, and based on the TARA, we outline our secure controls and things like that. Then during development, we need the attack feasibility rating again at least once to check of vulnerabilities. And then we have this long period of cybersecurity maintenance or continual cybersecurity activities, monitoring, evaluation, vulnerability management, that's also needed. And now when we have a look at the standard, there are in the annex, so not binding, in the annex three things which you can use for attack feasibility rating. One is this attack potential based rating. The other is the CVSS rating, and we have the attack vector approach. and CVSS. 3.1, Orhun and me discussed it already in the last Secure Our Streets, and the 4.0 was at the time when the ISO got released, not yet present. So that's why it is out of the standard of the annexes yet. Yeah, and when we look now what is used for what, then we are coming into the challenge. Because in the concept phase, in general, you will use the attack potential based approach. Why? Because it provides a sufficient level of detail. And when you come more and more to the post-development phase, you are faced with CVSS ratings. And the reason, for example, is that the public vulnerability databases currently judge it in CVSS, rated in CVSS, because it's well known from the IT security and will likely also not convert into another rating. So we have the challenge, all of us have the challenge to need a conversion between those approaches. And for Orhun and me, because we are not part of any committee who is in charge of adapting the ISO to the next version of the standard, the ISO 21434. We don't know if it's kept already in a kind of working group, but for those who are maybe just watching and after the presentation and found it valuable what we present, we want to welcome you to at least take it as an important topic to it. Yeah, and what we propose now and what we want to present is a maintainable holistic approach for risk and vulnerability management for the whole product lifecycle, with a transformation from CVSs to the attack potential and back. Orhun will present it in detail. Again, we provided our proposal for 3.1 in the last SOS, and I think it's still watchable over the World Wide Web. And now we come to the 4.0. Yeah, rationales already stated, both approaches are very likely that it will be present and remain present. 4.0 will be the future. Attack potential will remain in automotive cybersecurity engineering. CVSS is the main storage of public vulnerability databases. OEMs, as we see it now more and more with regulations coming around the globe, need to also report maybe to local authorities in this format, in CVS's format. So to summarize it up, there is a coexistence and it will remain at least for the next years. Yeah, and now I will hand over to Orhun, and he will give a deep dive in this comparison.
Cool. Thank you very much, Oliver, for that nice and interesting intro. Let me please share my screen with you guys. And then we go on. So we would like to firstly understand the CVSS 4.0 and also the attack potential based attack feasibility rating and how can we convert them to each other. As Oliver has just mentioned, we need both of them. I would like to just make a short reminder for all of us who doesn't have the ISO 21434 at the moment open on the side desk or something like that. But just if you look at this slide, you will see that as a summary, the pros, the positive aspects of the 21434 attack potential based approach is talking about the high degree of the detail and better precision and also consideration of the automotive specific aspects, right? On the other side, as Oliver already mentioned, the vulnerability databases are talking another language, and maybe some additional points such as exploit maturity, such as chain attacks and this kind of stuff are not really considered. So just as a negative aspects about it. So if you just look at which categories are exist here, you know that five different categories about the time, specialist expertise, knowledge about the item or the component, window of opportunity, and the equipment. And you know that all of those different categories are getting some raw values, some points, according to the evaluation by the analyst person. And then all of those values will be consolidated, summed. And then you see here on the upper right side, a small table. What you have as a sum will be then assigned to a certain attack feasibility rating from very low up to the high. Okay, so this is the attack potential based aspect. Now let's have a short look back to the 3.1 and how it was. Again, just about the pros of that approach, it evolved through the time. It had different past versions. It is widely used in IT, and most of the vulnerabilities in the NVD or similar databases are available in that format. However, when we are looking at it with the automotive glasses, we can say that this is a highly focused rating on the IT systems, IoT systems, but the automotive specific aspects are not always considered. There was one good thing with the 3.1. ISO was also referring to that rule or the equation, which is E equals to the 8.22 times VCPU, which are the metrics that were given here. And according to this result, we were still able to look at this table and decide a certain feasibility rating value, again, from very low to the high. So now we have switched to the 4.0. Again, one sentence about the pros. It is supposed to be providing more metrics, so which means that the more detailed analysis is possible, and also due to the consolidation of the attack vectors, a more consistent results are supposed to come up here as the advantages. The downsides is actually now by this way, we have broken the last link between the 21434 and the CVSS approach because we don't have this E equation anymore. And also there is a new metric. I mean, there are a lot of new metrics. However, the ISO is talking especially about some certain subset of the metrics. And there's a new metric there, which is called the attack requirements. Okay, so just as a short reminder or recap for all of us to talk about the CVSS versions. So now I just want to mention one more thing that in the ISO 21434, you may remember that the only exploitability metrics from the base metric group of CVSS 3.1 is considered, which means if I'm looking at the CVSS 3.1, that I focus only on that red area, or if I am now talking about the CVSS 4.0, which has much more metrics, but I'm only looking at this aspect. I think this is also important to keep in mind that from the automotive, from the ISO 21434, we are looking at a certain subset of all the metrics. The references are directly from the first.org and the specification of the 3.1 and also the 4.0 of the CVSS. I hope this short recap was helpful for all of us to bring us on the same page. Now, I would like to talk concretely about the conversion itself. What does it mean? So we are providing here actually two different ways. So the one is converting the or ratings from the attack potential approach, AFR, the attack feasibility rating, towards the CVSS, and also from the other way around, from the CVSS 4.0 to the attack potential based attack feasibility rating. Of course, now I start with the conversion from attack potential to the CVSS 4.0. And the first things that we ask ourselves is which parameters may cover similar or the same aspects, which parameters are dismissed in one of the approaches, and which parameters are missing in the other approach, right? And our main proposal is actually looking like that. On the left side, you see the different categories of the attack potential based approach. And on the right side, you see the CVSS approach. So in our proposal, similar to our previous proposal in the last year's SOS, we say that the window of opportunity is actually covering similar aspects with the attack vector from CVSS 4.0. If you look at it a little bit detailed, you will see that both of them have the four different categories. So we can more or less also looking at their definitions, map them to each other, which means On the left side, I have the unlimited at the top, which I can map to the network, or difficult to the physical. It's coming, however, a little bit tricky if I'm looking at the other categories. So for this reason, I will be now explaining about the second category, which we propose to consolidate the expertise, knowledge about the item, and the equipment to the attack complexity. I will come to the details of that in the next slide. But on the other side, I have in the CVSS 4.0 a new metric, which is called the attack requirements, which I need to kind of self-calculate. However, on the other side, I have on the attack potential-based approach an elapsed time information, which CVSS 4.0 does not really consider, so which is to be dismissed. And then I have two more additional fields that I need to find a solution: self-calculation, the privileges required, and the user interaction. So principally, we can generalize also those stuff for the automotive, but let's keep it now as if they would be self-calculated. So let me now go into the details of the conversion from these consolidated ratings of the expertise, knowledge, and the equipment into the attack complexity metric. So I just want to show you the subcategories of those different variables. And if you look at it, you know that in the ISO 21434, we have 4 different values for each of the categories. However, on the CVSS 4.0, we have only 2, namely attack complexity is low or attack complexity is high. So we need to kind of find an intelligent way here to map the left side to the right side. And for that one, we propose to have a look at the CVSS 4.0 specification firstly, because there is some interesting input over there for us. Namely, it says that the attack complexity that you see on the right side does not relate to the amount of the time or the attempts that it would take for an attacker to succeed, which means it says on the left side, there should be no time information. So this is one of the components that we have for the ISO SAE 21434, but of course we kicked it out from here because of that specific item from the CVSS 4.0 specification. And if we read it a little bit further, it says that gathering target specific secrets, which we interpreted as the individual secrets regarding the end units, in order to execute the attack successfully, belongs to the high complexity. So it's another hint for us. And then there's another sentence which says that while considering the base metrics, which we are on the base exploitability metrics, it should be assumed that the attacker has advanced knowledge of the system. Okay. So according to these 3 statements, our proposal is to look at this green frame, the green area, and say that if all of the values that I have in the attack potential based approach are coming from the green area, then we can say that the attack complexity is low. However, if any value is selected from the red area, then the attack complexity will be high. Okay. So that's good actually. You remember this previous slide, hopefully. In that case, we cannot use any more information from the attack potential based approach. So now we need to either create the rest of them, and I will propose that we just directly jump into a concrete example and have a look at it. So we have a concrete CVE example here from the year of 2021. It's talking about a vulnerability on a communication module. Some irrelevant details are blended here. So there's a firmware which is designed for a module, for a communication module, and it looks like that this is transmitting the clear text over the HTTP protocol, which may allow an on-path attacker to get the user credentials. Okay, so what we have done is, by the way, the example is directly from the CVSS 4.0 specification, so feel free to have a look at it also afterwards. So what we have done is we have manually rated that so that we can just say, okay, maybe this is as a vulnerability that we know at the time of the design, so we can just include it into our documentation, Tara, whatever, and we have put the values that you can see here. So window of opportunity is remote because I can just communicate with the device wherever I want. I just need to only have the information about which device it is, and that's more or less all. And on the other side, the elapsed time has been set for the less than a week, and so on. So if I just add all of these points, these 1, 6, and 3, straightforward for all of us, it will be the 10. And the 10 means, if you look at the small lookup table at the right upper side, means for me somewhere between 0 to 13, which is high. Okay, then my AFR rating, attack feasibility rating, is high. The question is now, how can I bring it into the CVSS 4.0? So let's remember what we have talked in the previous slides. The three values about the expertise, knowledge about the item, and the equipment, these are all selected from that green frame, which means the attack complexity will be low. The window of opportunity was, if you remember, pretty simple. We can just map it one-to-one, and it is here remote, so which means it will be mapped to the network in the CVSS 4.0, which is also pretty much fine. Then we can talk about the point user interaction. It is clear here, we can say that we do not need that, and you can also confirm that with the vulnerability description. And elapsed time is actually dismissed because we don't need that in the CVSS 4.0, and also the privileges are set to the none. So this means I am getting the attack vector that you can see here at the left bottom side. And if I just put the extracted value here, that you can see I am getting a exploitability score somewhere between 8.2 to the 9.2. So I just want to make a little bit deep dive here. It's not a single or a certain exploitability score because of the fact that we have some additional metrics that you can see here. These are the vulnerable system impact metrics that belong to the CVSS. So if you just choose only one of the metrics, let's say only the confidentiality, then it will be on the 8.2. If you just choose the impact rating for the confidentiality, integrity, and also the availability that you can see here, then you will go up to the 9.2. So this is where these range is coming from. Just wanted to explain that. So, but it doesn't actually change a lot at the result because both of them are at the high area. So this is actually how to apply directly our proposal into an example, into an existing vulnerability. But this was, as you remember, from the left side to the right, so from the attack potential based approach to the CVSS. Let's now talk about the other way around. So how to do the conversion if I had at one point of a time, as Oliver explained, a TARA, which is based on the attack potential based attack feasibility rating, but now I get the vulnerability information in the CVSS 4.0. I'm just thinking about the future. The questions are the same. Which aspects are pretty much similar and comparable with each other? Which parameters am I supposed to dismiss? And which parameters am I supposed to get manually, okay, or calculate them manually? So we just actually replace the two columns that we had previously, and we can just keep more or less the same conversion approach. In the attack vector information, I can map directly to the window of opportunity. It is pretty straightforward. It's the same thing. As you see, it's also just the columns are replaced with each other, so that's fine. In the attack complexity now, it will be a little bit more complicated because I have a consolidated value for the rest of the three different parameters. And then the new attack requirements metric that comes with the CVSS 4.0, sorry to say that, but it's kind of at the moment dismissed by the attack feasibility rating. Nevertheless, we just do not want to ignore it completely, so we still use it as an additional input for the time that we will be calculating on our own. As we have mentioned already in the last year, so the privileges required and the user interaction, if you are not dealing with the HMI systems, and if you are not dealing with the 29, service 29, these two are already dismissed, so we don't really talk about them a lot. So let me now just explain you how we propose the conversion between the attack complexity and the consolidated values of expertise, knowledge, and the equipment. So when I look at the attack complexity, which is low and high, I get a consolidated value of the three components here. So please now try to remember the ISO 21434 table and their raw values. The minimum value for these three different categories will be 0, and the maximum value will be 28. Just to help you a little bit, I'm also showing it here that you see here all of the values can be 0, or all of them can be 8 plus 11 plus 9, which makes 28. Okay, so now let's try to remember the green area that we have discussed. And if I just highlight it here, so the minimum value for the green area will be 0, and the maximum value for the green area would be in that case actually 17, right? So we would like to map these actually with the low value, which means if I have um, the split of the 0 to 28 in a two uneven halves, which means 0 to 17 and then 18 to 28, if my complexity, attack complexity is low, then the consolidated raw points that I get will be 0 to 17. If the attack complexity is high, then the consolidated points will be 18 to 28. Please take care about the fact that we don't really need to find the individual rates here, because at the end of the day, I already need to consolidate them and sum them. So it's okay for me at the moment to have only the range, and I don't need to allocate the individual values to the expertise, knowledge, and the equipment. Okay. So now, after talking about this also so much, let's make it finalize the conversion. And we just mentioned that the attack requirements are actually kind of dismissed, but we still want to use that impact. Let's look at the definition of the attack requirements metric from the CVSS 4.0. It says that the attack requirements are present if the successful attack depends on the deployment or execution, such as race condition. And for that one, to get the race condition, to win the race condition, it could be eventually the case that the attack may need to be executed multiple times. This just brings into our mind an interpretation that this can provide an additional time impact. So our proposal is, if you have the attack requirements present, feel free to go one level upper with the time, the calculated time values that you have. Um, so as I have just mentioned about this one, and the privileges required. Also, we talked about it in terms of access rights, mostly not applicable. Most of the components have the root access exception 29 implementation that we will be seeing in the future more and more. Okay. Also, the user interaction mostly not applicable, except if you are dealing directly with the customer, directly with the driver through an HMI. So now let's put all of these discussed stuff into another example. Again, we took another vulnerability, pretty actual actually from this year, the regression. SSH connection used by the Linux-based ECU within the vehicle was analyzed in Tara based on the attack feasibility rating some years ago. However, the vulnerability information arrived just this year based on the CVSS 4.0. Okay, so this is the case, and let's look at the attack vector that we have. This is looking on the left side, and I would like to translate it into the right side. So I'm just looking at the CVSS 4.0 documentation, which is this example is given, and you can see here the attack vector given with the following description. Again, here we have another range, which goes from 6.3 up to the 9.2, due to the same fact that I have here the vulnerable system impact metrics that I can just say all of them are important for me or none of them are important for me, or at least one of them is important for me. So for this reason, I have this range again. But now let's talk about the rest of the points. So attack vector is given as network directly in the CVSS example documentation, so I can map it to the unlimited in the window of opportunity. Elapsed time is calculated manually. We said here a day. However, we know that we have the attack requirements present, so we just feel free to go one step higher. So instead of smaller than a day, we now go to the smaller than a week. Now, knowing that the attack complexity is high, I have the higher classification, which means I have the points from 18 to 28 consolidated for the expertise, knowledge, and also the equipment. Which means that if I just put all of the information on the right side now, I have here shorter than a week, 1 point. I have the X, Y, and the Z, which I know that they will be somewhere between 18 to 28. And I have here the unlimited, which I have means 0 point. So at the end of the day, my rating will be 19 or higher. And this brings me to the point, if I just look at the lookup table here, if I'm 19, then I am at the border of the medium up to the lower or medium or the lower levels. So of course, as I have a certain range on the CVSS side, I also have a range here from the attack feasibility rating side. Um, about the following facts and the pros of the cons, to what extent our approach is fine and where it has its weaknesses, we will talk about that. But I just wanted to mention explicitly once more time before I give the word back to Oliver, that the examples that we have currently are pretty limited with the CVSS 4.0. So we had to explicitly go to the documentation of the CVSS 4.0 specification and get our examples directly from there, with the hope that it will be better in the future. Saying that, Oliver, I would like to give the word back to you for the summary on your side.
Okay.
Let me just stop the presentation. Yes.
So yeah. Yeah, great, Orhun. And now we are going back to a less level of detail. I think it's was very interesting to see this ratings and conversions. So let's try to sum it up what we just saw, and also from our experience we had in the previous 3.1 conversion. Um, we had some takeaways. So for example, there shall be no differences whether you have a wireless device, a highly connected car to X device or product ECU, or just a common ECU. It will work for all kind of automotive products. And we have and with this approach we can easily also maintain our risk for a certain product, our TARA, over time, which is needed. You cannot just begin with a TARA and then maybe have different kind or other kind of documents where to store or where to maintain some vulnerability analysis over time. This will be too complex. So you can really go from a CVSS and maintain at one place for a product the risk evaluation and continuously update it. Yeah, CVSs will remain, and we have here on the right side also just a graphical representation what I stated before. So you have things from inputs from databases or from your supply chain in CVSS ratings. You need to react on it. You need to convert to know exactly what's going on, to judge it. We have the OEM and we have the supply chain, which maybe more in future, need to report also to legal authorities. But when we want to exchange with the community or with public vulnerability databases, which I know is still a fresh topic for in automotive, and also I think Auto ISAC is struggling at the moment to bring things up and to this willingness of sharing, but this will come for automotive more and more, and we need to have here exchange formats in place and support the existing ones. Yeah. As we stated, as Orhun stated, 21434 refers only to base exploitability metrics for a tech feasibility rating. We saw, and when we compare now our two sessions from the last year and this year, there's CVSs only differs only in the base exploitability metrics. So we can still use both for the different kind of versions. This conversion will still work with what you have seen here and in the past. The updates we had was this for the attack complexity calculation for this grouping, and also when we go from this consideration of potential time, the impact due attack requirements, race conditions, and impacts to exploitability, so threat metric. The strengths of our approach, we say it's appropriate, it's easy, it's comprehensive, understandable what's going on. We satisfy all the needs, all the demands. Orhun and me already said, so beginning from the Tara, having the CVSs later on, maintaining the Tara. We have comparable and consistent attack feasibility ratings, and we have a same approach for any kind of ECUs. And again, we want to say maybe when you think it's worth, bring it into updates of the ISO 21434 in committees. But for sure, we are really rational, and we say there are some limitations, and the major limitation is, you see it in the conversion Orhun just showed. It is mainly based on the human expertise, on the one who is doing it, on the judgment this one is doing it. Um, this is this certainly impacts it. And also I just saw in the Q&As a question about when you convert it again and again, hop, 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 hop. This is exactly a thing where I think the human expertise, the level of expertise jumps in, and this will have its divergation, especially when two people are doing it and hopping between and converting it again and again. Yeah, we have this dismiss of information. We have this different kind of level of details, which are struggling. And as Orhun said, there are at the moment few examples with 4.0 available. So we took the few we got. And also when you now see, when you're performing ratings with the 3.1 and 4.0, we feel that there are remarkable differences in outcomes. So this is it. This was our presentation. I hope you like it. And as stated, we are there available for later on in the Secure Our Streets, or you can contact us anytime after the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oliver and Orhun, for the presentation. Well, I think CVSS 4.0 is still a myth for many of us. So I think this was a good introduction, at least for me. So I would like to quickly switch to the questions. So we start from the ones which are upvoted most. Okay. So this is from Abdul Rahman from US. So what about analytics that have been performed in CVSS 3.1 and how to close the gap and be in compliance to meet the CVSS 4 approach?
I think that's a good question, and I think this is the pain point, right? Let's formulate it not as a question, but as a pain point. And I see the different aspects here. So first of all, as I have also mentioned, as Oliver also mentioned, at the moment the number of the examples with the CVSS 4.0 is very limited. So we had to always go back to the specification. The second thing is there is no currently standard over there which supports at least a kind of partial compatibility between the ISO 21434 and the CVSS 4.0. So this is exactly the gap, and I think our presentation shall be the invite for the brainstorming or call for the brainstorming for all of
Exactly.
us to mention that, hey, here is a gap, here there was a gap that we mentioned in the last year, and this gap is now getting bigger. So guys, we need to kind of act on it. So this is actually our main drive here. So
Yeah.
for this reason, I totally share this view here. and I kindly then invite to do the brainstorming further, discuss with the ISO committees, discuss with the other people who have some interesting and new ideas on that.
Thanks for the reply, Orhun. So we jump to the next question. Well, I think it is something that all of us would like. Yeah, an online calculator that easily transfer the values. So
Yeah,
we love, those gadgets.
yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't do at the moment, but what we have done is, of course, this is a good idea. But I can just maybe refer to the point which was discussed today in the LinkedIn. So I think John Heldred was kind of looking for a way to automatically prioritize the vulnerabilities, and at least we believe that we provided a step to partially to start the conversion in an automated way. I think the next step will be really the online calculator, and we use the CVSS online calculator. So when you get the slides later, you can just click on the attack vectors and you can just land on the calculator. So we used it. However, for our purposes, for the conversion, we didn't do the online calculator yet. But I think that's a really good idea. So maybe we can work on it together.
Yeah. Yes, and I want to add, this is online calculation. It's hard to have this automation. For sure, you can guide this expertise way and this conversion. But we did not do yet. And what I want to add is, as we all know, security also is dependent to be simple and easy, and maybe committees and the responsible should really work to, at a long-term view, try to unify these things, because we have at the moment enough complexity with all this regulation and things like that, and to get rid maybe of one thing and to unify this would be very appreciated. And this is also what maybe we want to give Orhun and me a push. For sure, we are not naive. This will not work in the next months and few years. But to raise the importance that there are two things outside for the same purpose, and maybe in the mid or long term way, people see the importance to unify it.
Thanks, Oliver and Orhun. So maybe we can take this as a promise for the future, so everyone can benefit the tool. Maybe one day. Okay. So the next question. So from Sebastian. So the deviation based on conversation is lower than the deviation you get when having two different experts from the same Tara. Well, do you support this statement?
I'm having a little trouble to understand the exact statement here, but I think it talks about that the deviation that we bring with our conversion, right? Yeah, with our conversion, I think it's talking about that. So first of all, when we are looking at the CVSS 4.0, as I have mentioned, we have to consider the additional metrics. So I already get a range. So I do not have a single value that I need to just convert. So I get a range. And it's, of course, then kind of, if I have a range on the left side, if I have a range on the right side, then it's not always very easy that they fit to each other. However, on the other side, I think this is not a specific issue to our conversion. So one of the motivations that the CVSS 4.0 came out is also to provide more consistency and better consolidated results, although the different analyses are done by the different people, same analysis done by the different people. And we know that in the automotive that always one of the analysts is performing and the other one is at least reviewing it, to exactly avoid these kind of different, let's say, values that are coming from the same Tara. I just tried to answer the question in a way that I understood it. If it's
Yeah.
not
And
okay,
my
maybe we can talk about it later as well. Yeah.
and my simple answer is, because I had maybe more time to get it, is simply yes. I think you're completely right. So when really experts are doing the same conversion as we described it, I think they tend to come to the same result. rather than with the current way of Tara analytics, the different experts come to the same Tara result. If I understood it correctly.
All right. So, well, we are now at the end of the session, so we have to close. So I would like, where there are still unanswered questions, so I would like to invite all of our guests to the lounge to ask their questions and maybe have a chat with you. So I would like to thank you again, Oliver and Orhun, for this wonderful presentation. So we learned, at least on my side, many things. So thanks again.
Yeah.
Thank you very much as
Thank you
well.
very much.
Thank you.
Oliver, sind wir jetzt gerade in dem Launch-Bereich oder müssen wir irgendwo jetzt umswitchen? Ich habe das nicht verstanden.
Ich glaube, wir müssen umswitchen.
Okay, dann mache ich das. Ich gehe mal
Ich
zurück.
probiere es auch mal.
Ja, okay.